Okay, so instead we're going to talk about civil discourse in the classroom and beyond, civil discourse project at MIT that Brett and I set up. So you'll remember in the fall of 2021, the cancellation of the Chicago geophysicist Dorian Abbott's Carlson lecture at MIT. His lecture was going to be on exoplanets, but he'd expressed in other venues heterodox opinions on matters related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and for that reason, his talk was cancelled. It was an international news story. They say all publicity is good publicity, but this may well have been a counterexample. So one beneficial result of the Abbott cancellation was that it started a serious discussion on the MIT campus about academic freedom and free expression. And a year and a bit later, the faculty had passed a statement on free expression and academic freedom, and this was enthusiastically endorsed by our new president, Sally Kronberg. Now, meanwhile, when all this was going on, Brad and I thought we should do something to help the cause of free expression and academic freedom at MIT, a cause that we both very much believe in. So we applied for a large grant for a civil discourse project for the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. That was in 2022, and in 2023 we got the grant, and this is from the Arthur Vining Davis Foundation's website. We partnered up with Concourse, which is an MIT first-year learning community, and in particular with Anne McCants, who's also in history, who's the director of Concourse, and Linda Ravier, who's a lecturer in Concourse. And the advantage of doing this is that we get a captive audience of MIT undergraduates. We can get a lot of feedback from them on what works and what doesn't. We also have other partners, two internal ones, MIT Philosophy, where Brad and I are both located, and the School of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences. The Dean has been exceptionally supportive of our project, so we're very grateful to him for that. And two external collaborators, Yasha Mount, some of you may have heard of him. He had a recent book out called The Identity Trap. He's a political scientist at Johns Hopkins, and he started this organization, which is really all about civil discourse, called Persuasion. And there's an associated podcast, Good Fight, hosted by Yasha Mount himself. And the plan was to get some of our guests, I'm about to tell you about them, onto his podcast. And then the other external organization is Braver Angels. That's a national community organization which is known for its debate programs in colleges and universities. So the first event we had, the central component, not the only component, the central component of our program is a series of speaker events to which the entire MIT community is invited. And the idea was to bring in speakers from outside MIT who had well thought out opinions on controversial matters, controversial and important matters, and pair these speakers with people from the MIT community. So the first event we had was on climate change. Is it an existential threat or bump in the road? And the external speaker was Stephen Koonin, who was in the Obama administration as a science advisor and also was once the provost of Caltech. And we paired him, he's now at NYU, we paired him with MIT's well-known climate scientist, Carrie Emanuel from Earth Atmospheric and Planetary Sciences. That first event was a great success. Here it is written up on the SHASS website, a civil discourse on climate change. The forum is the first in a series planned by MIT this year, part of an initiative meant to encourage the open exchange of ideas. The quote from Kunin at the bottom, and there on the right you can see Brad moderating a discussion between Kunin and Emanuel. Anyway, we both thought, everyone thought this was a big success, and it was great to see two exceptionally well-informed people talking and to some extent disagreeing, although the level of agreement was somewhat surprising about what is undeniably a very important issue. The next event was even more important than climate change. It was the question, has feminism made progress, with Mary Harrington, who's from the UK, who has recently written a book called Feminism Against Progress. She's a self-described reactionary feminist, and we paired her with our very own Anne McCants from history. That was in November, and there's a couple of shots on the right from the event, which was extremely successful. Mary went on Yasha's podcast. The event we've had so far this year was on the question, can we trust medical science, with specific reference to COVID policies, lockdowns, masking, and so forth. And our external speaker was Vinay Prasad, who is a physician and a professor of epidemiology at UC San Francisco, who has been very active in criticizing COVID policies from the CDC in particular. And we paired him with Pekka Hosoi from mechanical engineering. Pekka was an advisor to the Biden administration over COVID and was very heavily involved in MIT's COVID response. And again, I think that was a tremendous success, at least according to Vinay when he tweeted about it afterwards. Really spirited debate at MIT last night, including debating MIT's vaccine and booster mandates. Terrific remorseful to debate their flawed policies, which continue to this day. Well, whether or not they were flawed, at least that question got some very much needed airtime. So now I think that brings us up to the present day. I'll hand over to Brad.